to me, the number one thing when we start looking at the holidays, and I mean, just as all year round, we have too much to do as a caregiver. The holidays add all those additional stresses. There's more activities. There's all the different items that, you know, you want to get out and buy and see, and places you want to go, events you want to attend. And we can oftentimes feel very conflicted because on the one hand, there's a big societal kind of pressure on that everybody has a great Christmas. But the reality is that many of us, you know, have pretty conflicted feelings at this time of year because we sense what we've lost in the past, what the people we're providing care for can't do anymore. And it can really cause us it can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster. So, you know, we want to constantly think about that because this is all on top of the role of caregiving and all of the things that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. So, I don't know about you, but I mean, certainly I experienced quite a variety of feelings and emotions when I was looking after my mom. You know, I mean, there's a lot of pressure and frustration around, okay, I'm ready to go, but it's going to take me 20 minutes to get her dressed and out the door, and then something happens, or, you know, and it takes longer, or there's, you know, you go out and discover you've got a flat tire, or whatever is going on, you know, the snow arrives, which makes it all difficult. So we all experience a wide variety of emotions, and I think it's a good thing to recognize that as a caregiver, that it's not just all, you know, lots of things going on that are going to cause us difficulty, and we need to be able to recognize that that's a pretty normal part of the process here, and that we are going to be feeling a variety of ways within a very short space of time. I thought I might just sort of put this out to you all, just in terms of if you've been doing any thinking about the holidays and what it is that you find the most difficult to adjust to, and how you kind of identify that you're not coping. What kinds of triggers do you have? How do you deal with those when you're, you know, busy and about, and do you even take the time to kind of think about what it is that's causing you difficulty here? So please feel free to make any box or to raise your hands if you've got something to say. We've got lots of time, and you know, it's an opportunity because we all learn that opportunities to do things. So Jan is just reminding everybody if they can mute their phones, because sometimes we can hear, you know, dishes in the background and different things. You can just push *6, that will mute it, and then you just unpush, or then you just push *6 again if you want to talk. So we've got a bit of a list of some of the, you know, the different things that people are experiencing, but we all have our own triggers. So you know, Gail's mentioning like trying to please everyone and not putting your own feelings into the equation. That's for sure one of the ones you feel pulled in a lot of different directions, and you know, you want things to be good, but sometimes it's difficult to you know, create the environment that you want when you're worried about, you know, it's too stressful for the person you're looking after to be out for more than an hour at a time. So to me, one of the big things is the time that it takes to get ready, to prepare, not having the energy sometimes to accomplish some of the things you have on your to-do list. And so those are all things that can cause problems. And I think a lot of times we don't always think about it in terms of what happens. But if we take a look at some of the symptoms of stress, this too is helpful, because what we find is that we don't always think about, you know, that anxiety or that forgetfulness can easily be part of the stress of the moment, more so than at other times. But we have a wide variety of ways that stress affects us, and this is only just a few, because the list that I looked at had over 50 items on it, and I just thought I would just pick some of the more common ones that probably most of us can relate to. Headaches, feeling overwhelmed, insomnia, crying spells. I'm going to kind of go through the list because I know some people are just on audio and they don't actually have the slides in front of them. So if I'm forgetting to do that, please let me know if you're just online. So we have aches and pains. It can be a very lonely time of year, the holiday season, and especially if we're feeling a bit isolated. We can oftentimes have feelings of depression, frustration, irritability, poor ability to concentrate. We feel guilt, anger. We get upset at little things and we kind of blow them out of proportion. We can't stop from having thoughts go round and round in our head, which, is a lot of worry and anxiety. And of course, then we have heart palpitations and all kinds of things as well. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to add to the list? Please feel free. Okay. And Janet just said that, balancing the time that is required to provide basic caregiving and adding on the other tasks can really tip the balance. So I think for sure that's the case. Oftentimes we don't have as much energy as we would at other periods, and so we just feel pulled in a lot of directions, and it's tough to kind of make those choices about what we're going to do and what we're not. I think one of the big ones is our eating habits, because when we get to a point, well, particularly around Christmas, there's so many extra goodies and that the stress, we just kind of tend to overeat. I've got a slide here just entitled Emotional Eating, and it talks about the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger, or just, the stress. So, if you're physically hungry, it'll be a gradual thing, and you can postpone it. If it's an emotional eating, then you're feeling that you have to eat right now, and it's urgent, and so chances are you're going to stop and grab some fast food or do something, shovel in a sandwich at work. Physical hunger can be satisfied with a lot of variety of foods, but oftentimes emotional hunger, you have cravings for things like pizza and ice cream and, chocolate chip cookies or whatever. So we can, if we think about these things, sometimes we can just say, okay, why am I eating right now? Right? Because if you're physically hungry, when you're full, you're going to stop eating. But I know when I'm stressed, I will tend to sort of eat that whole bag of taco chips or something. So, you eat way more than you normally would. If you're just eating because you're hungry, you don't really feel guilty. But after, eating an entire bag of potato chips or something, I think, oh my gosh, what have I done? So I can feel quite distressed by that. And we all know that at this time of the year, there's way too many choices. There's, all the extra special goodies that people bring into work, and the parties and the socializing, and so many choices in the way of food that it's very easy to get carried away. And I think the other thing too is, alcohol, and the consumption of alcohol can also be a big one, because it's easy to drink more than normal as well as eat more than normal. So, yes, it is definitely easy to eat the wrong things, or too much of the right things too. So, but it's always, you've got those holiday traditions with the big meals, and so it can really take a lot out of you, particularly if you're the one that's being expected to prepare those big meals too. Okay. So if we're looking at holiday stress, what we want to do, this is just a little stress assessment that I found, and what we're talking about is what are the things that you need to do that you're looking at. You should all have a handout called Managing the Holidays, which itemizes the questions that I'm just going to be asking. And you can, take that with you to, sit down with it and think about where you're at. So the first question is, of course, what are your priorities? What is it that is important for you? Is it decorating the house? Oh, okay. Actually, Janet said that the handout's going to be sent out with the webinar evaluation. So don't worry about writing these down. This is on your handout. So, I mean, again, decorating the house. Oops, looking in the right spot there. Spending quiet time with your family member. Managing the holiday budget. We all know it's easy enough to overspend when we're in a hurry and rushed and we don't have the time to think about what we want to get, or we just, get carried away. Entertaining can also be quite a stressful thing from two perspectives, getting out to activities, but also entertaining yourself, and of course all the prep that's involved with that. Cleaning your house is another one, right? Because, of course, if you've got company coming, that's another factor. And, even though they may be fun activities, going to holiday gatherings can also be very wearing, particularly when you're caregiving. If you've got to think, okay, now, are they going to know who these people are? How am I going to manage them if they start acting out? Have I got enough supplies if they're incontinent? Have I got a change of clothes? All of those little things that you as a caregiver are thinking about in the background make a big difference too, right? So, we enjoy all of these activities, but they can also drain us of our energy. Christmas cards. I've always felt guilty myself because I could never get my Christmas cards out very early, and that was a big stressor for me. There's also all the purchasing and wrapping of gifts and all of that kind of stuff. So if you've got a big family, if people are out of town, if you don't know what to get for them, if you don't have a price limit, all those kinds of things can be a challenge. So keep those things in mind, right? And there's also, attending, like a midnight mass or a choir concert or a sail pass, something like that. There's activities we want to go to, and we do need to look at that for sure in terms of prioritizing. So if you took a look at the list and decided what were your 3 main priorities and what could you do without, that's always a good starting point, right? What is it that you really want to do, and what can you let go or find another way of doing? One of the comments that's been made in the chat line is that email has really helped ease the Christmas card task. And I must admit that that's basically what I've resorted to. There's a number of different websites online where you can basically find a Christmas card that's animated or whatever, and you just put in your little personal note and you send it to the people that you want to have it go to, and you push a button and it's done. And it saved me a lot of grief. So I actually end up sending way more cards now by email than I ever would have by doing it manually. And I can do it from home. I don't have to go out. So if you've got some time at home, you know, a little bit of downtime, that's something that you could do for sure. And another good suggestion is gift bags, so that rather than doing all of the individual wrapping, especially with those awkward shaped presents, you just tuck them in a gift bag and your wrapping's done in half the time. Yeah. And Gail's suggested that one of the things that she does is she only sends cards to the people that she doesn't see and who don't have computers. And otherwise she does it with computers. So that's a great thing. Yeah. And so, you know, we can come up with other ways of doing the things that we want to do rather than just feeling we have to do everything the same all the time. Because a lot of what coping with caregiving during the holidays is about is finding adaptations, ways that you can do things differently. Because you want to keep in mind that, you know, while we're tough on the outside, we're pretty fragile and we can break pretty easily too. So sometimes we need to look after ourselves. In fact, all of the time we need to look after ourselves. It's just a challenge sometimes because we always put other people's needs first. So just remember that you're like those very fragile little Christmas dolls that need good TLC. And remember to give yourself some good care during the holiday season. Part of the holiday stress assessment is, you know, once you've kind of made your list of all the jobs that you need to do over the season, take a look at it and ask yourself these questions. Is this something that I want to do? Because a lot of times we do things that we don't particularly want to do or enjoy, but we feel we should be doing them. The other question is, can I choose to do it differently? So like the card's a good example, right? Doing it on computer, if that works for you, saves a lot of time. And you still feel that you've been able to reach out to people. Gift bags, the same thing, right? You do it a different way. Look at it from the perspective, would the holidays be the same without it? If I didn't do this, would it be the same? And sometimes you think, well, no, it won't be the same, but, you know, I didn't really want to do that anyway, so I don't have to. Because oftentimes we look at it and we do it out of habit or we do it out of tradition. We do it sometimes out of obligation. And, you know, sometimes this is an opportunity to take a look and to make a choice to do things differently. So if you're choosing to do it because you want to do it and you enjoy it, that's one thing. But, you know, maybe this is the opportunity to say, you know, I'm afraid I can't really make it to that gathering. It's going to be too late and we're not going to be able to manage it. So you can opt out of some of the things that perhaps are too difficult, too stressful, and not enjoyable to you. The other option is, you know, is this something that one person can do or can you share it with others? So there's lots of choices here, different ways that you can, you know, tackle some of these jobs. And looking at, yeah, whose need is it? Is it your need or is it somebody else's need as to why things are happening the way they are? For a long time, for example, when my children were little, we would pack everything up on Christmas Eve and we would take the ferry to Vancouver and we would get in very late and everybody would be exhausted and we really didn't enjoy Christmas morning because, you know, the kids, they're going, well, are the kids up? Well, the kids were still sleeping because they'd been up so late the night before. So we just decided we were going to change that and spend Christmas Eve here and rather than doing that because we were really meeting other people's, you know, needs rather than our own. And so that made a huge difference to coping with that for us. It's a different example, but it's the same type of thing. Okay. I think the big thing that we have to look at is our expectations. Because if you've always been the, consummate hostess and prepared the absolutely amazing Christmas dinner, it's hard to give that up because it may be something that you've really enjoyed doing. So you've got those internal expectations, and then you've also got, the external expectations of other people that, you will do these things the way you've always done them. So that may be your children or grandchildren. So lots of times people find that they're shifting the way things are done. So rather than doing everything, they say, well, can you bring dessert? And because you always make that great cake. And can you, make a vegetable? So spreading it out a little bit is another way of dealing with it. So, we want to do as much as we can. We want to include the person that we're caregiving for to the best of their ability, but not create, more stress on yourself or more stress on other people. Do other people find that? Is there anybody that would like to comment on expectations, either your own or other people's, and how you're coping with that? Okay. So I'm just going to carry on here, and we'll respond to the questions as they come in. Right. So the questions you're asking yourself is, do I feel like doing it? I always wonder why I spend all this time doing things I don't want to do, that I don't enjoy doing, when other people could maybe help me with it. Or alternately, can somebody else be responsible for seeing that it gets done? And what can I do that can simplify the task? So again, the potluck dinner might be one option. Yeah. Right. And Gail says that in their family, whoever's hosting the Christmas meal cooks the meat, and everybody else brings a dish with them. So it becomes more like a collaborative holiday event rather than just one person being responsible. And I think a really key piece there is to help with the cleanup after the meal, because we all know how much there is that needs to be done, especially when you're exhausted from having done the initial prep, right? Yeah. Yeah. And Bonnie's added that, she thinks it's very important to think about the expectations early and ask for help. And, sometimes we just sort of end up in the midst of something and then we go, oh, So that's why I really like the idea of having a list and thinking about, okay, what could we do here? How could we do it differently? And how would that work for me? What can we do to change it around? So those are all excellent ideas. The potluck dinners, the gift bags, everything. And also when people share the tasks, they feel that they don't carry quite such a burden. Okay. I have a quote here from Ellen Goodman, which I think is worthwhile reading. We each have a litany of holiday rituals and everyday habits that we hold on to, and we often greet radical innovation with the enthusiasm of a baby meeting a new sitter. We defend against it, and not always, but often enough reject it. Slowly we adjust, but only if we have to. And I think that's very true, because when you've always done things in a certain way, it's extremely difficult to change the pattern. So I know a few years ago we decided to just do a Secret Santa draw and draw one name for one and buy one present instead of buying presents for everybody. And it's made a huge difference in the amount of time that that whole process takes, and also you have a lot more opportunity to give thought to what it is that that particular person would like. So that's a great thing. The Secret Santa website is online, and they match the names, they do the whole process for you, and then it just gets emailed out to the people in the group. It's a great way. Yeah. Janet's just saying that yeah, she loves the saying, examine your resistance, right? A huge clue to need to look at expectations, right? Yeah, because oftentimes when we don't want to make a change, what is it that we're resisting? Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so I'm sure many of you can relate to that feeling of, you know, suddenly, okay, well, oh, we're going to do it this way. Oh, well, that's something that's a challenge for me, because if I'm used to doing things in a certain direction, it's going to be hard for me to make those changes too. So yeah, so if anybody has any comments on any of these, please feel free to add to the discussion. Okay. I think the other thing that, you know, we need to remember when we're caregiving is that change is difficult to cope with, not only for us as a caregiver, because we're wanting to keep things the way they were, but also for the person that we are caring for. So it's really key to keep your basic routines in place as much as possible. You want to provide a quiet and less distracting environment for the person you're caring for. And they may need some cues about what's happening. Give them some time to prep that while the grandchildren are coming over, because it's, you know, Christmas, and we're going to give them their presents, and you know, you can play seasonal music, but giving them a lot of the, you know, the connection with the season, but not to the point that they're overwhelmed by it. Because oftentimes if the person you're looking after has dementia or is physically frail, the cost of, you know, sitting and having a 5-hour entertaining afternoon may be too much for them. So, you know, can you do a shorter visit? Can you have people come for a shorter period of time? Can you start it earlier? Can you start it later? You know, how is it that you can help them adjust? Because if they're stressed, because it's not just you that's stressed, but oftentimes the person that you're caring for will pick up on all the activity and things going on. What they need is, you know, some time to process that. And they can get very irritable. They can get very behaviorally challenged. And it can be a very, you know, unfun place to be. So keep that in mind, so that, you know, if there's a lot of activity happening in the living room, maybe they sit with a cup of tea in the kitchen for a little bit, right? Okay, let me just see here. Yeah, and that's a good point, Janet, about asking your loved one what they would like most during the holidays, because they oftentimes might suggest something different, or might say, oh, I never really enjoyed going to that restaurant for dinner with those people. And so, you know, surprise, surprise, maybe you can change things, and or there may be just a few of the key things that you know, might work well for them. Ask the person you're looking after. Okay. The key here too is, I think that what we need to do is keep it simple, right? We need to prepare your, you know, the person you're caring for what's happening in terms of the activity, what the expectations are, who's coming, remind them of their names. But we also need to prepare the people that are visiting who may not have seen, your loved one for quite some time. So you could have a daughter from out of town who, hasn't seen dad and, needs to know that he is having trouble remembering who people are, or that, he can't do crossword puzzles anymore, or he won't be, fixing his usual special Christmas morning breakfast. So lots of times family can be very shocked if they haven't seen them. You see all those changes on a day-to-day basis. But what we find is that when people haven't seen someone for a while, or neighbors, or, company from out of town, it will be a real shock for them, and they won't really understand what's happening. So if you've got a chance to kind of prep them and just sort of say, well, I don't know if you're aware, but, George is, had dementia for quite some time now, and he may not remember who you are. So, the best thing to do is just have a social conversation and just kind of play it as it goes. So he may not, be able to respond like you think. So, yeah, and sometimes, change is not a bad thing. So Janet's saying that when she was caregiving for her mom, she was trying to keep things the way they had been when her dad was alive. But in fact, it made it harder for her because, of course, he wasn't there. So all those old routines didn't work anymore. So it's the kind of opportunity when you change things around. So a friend of mine recently lost her husband, and so they're doing things differently this year. She's going to her daughter's rather than having everybody come to her place. So that changing that routine can make can be a positive thing as well. Going back to the slide about the caregivers being fragile, and think about that, Christmas ball. One of the keys is to look after yourself. So, walking away from worry. I like this one. I usually say wait to worry, but walk away from worry is a good one too, because walking on its own will decrease your anxiety, improve your sleep, and it has a tranquilizing effect on the brain because your body's having to kind of focus on something else. So it can really help to refocus your energy. And getting out and getting some exercise and getting away from the pressures that you're under gives you some time to think about, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Is there some way I can do it differently? So walking away from worry. I think as caregivers, we oftentimes have trouble taking time for ourselves. And I was just listening to a podcast, and they were talking about just do 1% different. So just take 1% more time for yourself today, and then 1% more time for yourself tomorrow. And it doesn't sound like very much, but over time, that adds up. And so after a while, you kind of get in the habit of, okay, well, if I'm thinking about this, what could I do for myself today? How can I do this differently? Or how can I get that extra 10 minutes to focus on me? The other thing that I was reading was there's many different breathing exercises that you can do, and there's different forms of counting. There's different techniques. You hold your breath, you do something. But what this podcast was saying is that if what you do is some form of rhythmic breathing, so that you're breathing the same way consistently for a period of time, that will make a difference for you. The other thing that works quite well is if you're having real difficulty with, worrying and stressing over things and thinking about them in your head, is to take hot or cold and put it on your neck or your forehead or your feet or somewhere, and what it does is it forces your body back into the somatic system rather than the mind, because it's going, oh, I'm cold here, or I'm hot here. So it distracts your mind from thinking about things because it's focusing on your body. So I really like that one. Yeah. Okay. Yes, and just with regard to the 1%, Janet's saying, 1% can be just stepping outside for a breath of fresh air. Focusing on your breath is always a good thing. And just say, okay, I'm just going to step outside today, and I'm going to just spend 5 minutes out here breathing the cold and seeing where I'm at. Okay. So I've also, there's a comment saying that she tried I'm not sure if it's the 1% or the fresh air with her son, and it was amazing. So again, that's good. So I'm glad
Maureen, it was your suggestion to put ice on your neck.
Okay, yes.
And my son was he was having an anxiety episode, and he had some other things going on. And I said, here, take the cold pack, put it on your neck, and I said, now, how's it feeling now? And it just totally diffused the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, because your body has to stop going through those round and around circles, and it just settles down and has to think about what's happening. Why do I have a cold neck here? What's happening to my body? Yeah. So it's a great way of dealing with things. And anytime you're under great stress, breathing is the other thing, because you don't always have an ice pack handy. But
right.
If it's just sort of, okay, all right, that was a terrible whatever, just breathe. So a few weeks ago, I totally wiped out and fell and scraped my knee and bruised my cheek, and it was a very big shock to my system. And it was sort of, okay, I'm just going to sit here and breathe for 5 minutes. And it was amazing how much better I felt after that, because it does. Any kind of a disruption, be it something like that or a stressful phone call, just sit, take some time, breathe. And I like the idea about stepping outside, because when you're breathing fresh air, it's even better than just sitting and breathing. Thanks for that, Janet. So it's good to hear when it works like that. So, okay. The other thing is that, there may be people that you socialize with that may be acquaintances rather than good friends. But if you have a good friend or a group of good friends, it's a good thing to do is to just hang out with people that you can be honest with, that you can share your thoughts with, who understand what's going on in your life. And, just spend some quality time with a few of those really good people. It could be a daughter, it could be, somebody from work, it could be, your best friend since you were 10. But it could be a phone call, it can be anything. Just spend some time looking at what you can do and who you can be with. So those are really positive things that you can think about. So, and, sometimes if you, are feeling kind of isolated, the other thing is you reach out for support. So you phone a friend you haven't talked to for ages, or you call the Family Caregivers of BC or your local caregiving organization, because they are there to support you. And sometimes it's good to be able to talk to someone who's not actively involved in a situation, who has some objectivity, who can give you a little perspective on the situation, right? And maybe you can do some brainstorming with them if you're feeling stressed out and you can't think what else you might be able to do here in this situation. Reaching out for support of any type. So, it could be, okay, I need to talk to my doctor to see if we can deal with this differently. I need to get some respite and talk to my son in Toronto and see if he can come out for a break. All of those kinds of things. So reaching out for support is a tough thing to do, but it really does help to put things in perspective. So just like Janet's example about the ice pack, it's the same kind of thing, right? Reaching out, talking to somebody, helps to reduce the anxiety or whatever, because you've been able to run it by somebody. It's not just going on in your head anymore. Right? And one of the other alternatives is, of course, you can phone one of those people you don't send cards to. Christmas is usually when I talk to people that I always meant to connect with. And then I actually try and actually book something for the new year, so we actually get together rather than just talk on the phone. Okay. Laughter, the best medicine. Of course, that's, I think, the Reader's Digest version, isn't it? We need to laugh. We need to enjoy ourselves. We need to have fun. So whatever it is that makes you laugh, a funny movie. I've got a picture here of the Minions, but a lot of the Disney funny movies, a Christmas movie, Elf, something like that, the Santa Claus. All of those are well worth watching because a little bit of humor goes a long way. So, anything that you enjoy that makes you laugh until you cry is a great reducer of stress. And this is a quote: "My body needs laughter as much as it needs tears. Both are cleansers of stress." So keep that again in mind when, you're thinking, oh, gosh, I'm just so worn out. There's so much going on. Instead of sitting in front of the TV and watching a million commercials, rent a movie and something that you enjoy and maybe you can laugh with, or have the family and everybody watches a funny Christmas movie. Yeah. So Santa Claus is one of the ones that I always enjoy, but of course even the Grinch or any of those are Charlie Brown. There's lots of great movies. So if people have suggestions, let me know. I think the other thing we have is the 4 A's of managing the holidays. So number one is to avoid the people and things that upset you or cause you too much stress. Say no. So, many of us have challenging family members that are not the most favorite people we want to be around. So limit the time you spend with them. You may need to be there for a short period, but maybe you can arrive late, go home early, or not go to those kinds of activities. They are going to, when you're already under a lot of pressure, having the opportunity to get away from that is, a great thing. So, if you can avoid it or limit the amount of time, then try that. And think ahead of how you might be able to do it. Another commitment, challenges with transportation, whatever. The second A is alter. So if the routines that you're used to doing are just too exhausting, then alter your expectations and alter the activities. So, maybe you don't take your husband to the Handel's Messiah, but maybe what you do is you get somebody in to provide some respite, and you go with your daughter, if that's something that you enjoy. So then you have respite, you have a break, you're able to do something that you enjoy participating in, and that's a good thing. So, right. And I think the other thing we have to recognize is that, a lot of caregiving is about acceptance. We need to accept that we need to manage our stress, We need to accept that there are changes in our care, the person we're caring for, and being able to go with the flow will make a big difference, right? If you can recognize that, then and let go of your expectations here again, it will make it easier for you. And we all know with caregiving that, you know, the best laid plans go out the window in an hour or 5 minutes, or before you even get them out of your head. So being a caregiver is about constantly adapting to changing items. So it could be changing health issues, it could be changing cognition, it could be the weather. I mean, I've spent several hours sitting at a ferry terminal because the weather changed and 2 ferries were canceled. So that's not a great place to be as a caregiver with the person you're looking after who has mobility issues and trying to figure out what to do. So you just got to go with it. And, you know, sometimes there's no point in stressing over things that you can't change. You just have to adapt and go with it. So I know I just think about, you know, when, you know, I would be driving and the car would suddenly die, and it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to be here by whatever. And it's, okay, well, the reality is I am not going to make it to there by whatever. So what do I need to do instead, right? You know, so who do I phone? You know, what can I do differently? Can I rebook? All those kinds of things. So being adaptive is one of the big keys to managing all year round, but particularly in the holiday season. Do people have any examples of things that they've done with any of these A's? So, you know, ways that they've avoided a situation or altered it in particular. That's always that's a good one for us to hear, because everybody gets ideas from other people's situations. And so please comment on any of these things. I feel like you know, I always like getting feedback. It's very helpful for me, because I think we all learn from other people's comments and what they're going through or how they've adjusted. So it's a bit difficult because, of course, we're all in our own little situations in our homes. But I do think that we really enjoy hearing from you and having that opportunity to, you know, bring out new ideas. So I know just Janet's ideas about the gift bags and things, and the, you know, the computer cards. Those things are you know, really helpful, because of course I keep saying, oh yeah, right, I forgot about the gift bag myself. So yeah, okay. So hopefully we've got a few comments coming in the next little bit. Okay, so yeah, so Bonnie's saying that, you know, using humor and making a situation funny is a great way of coping, because we, sorry, I've just lost my my place in the chat line here. Okay, there I go. I just touched the wrong button. Yeah, so yes, so humor is, yeah, if you know, sometimes, you know, rather than crying, having a good laugh about something is certainly the way to go. And or yes, the problem becomes funny in hindsight, and yes, taking a different view of it, right, is a good thing, right? And yes, and so Gail's saying that, you know, when she's transporting her person to get help, makes it a lot less stressful. I know when we used to bring my mother-in-law to activities, it would be, okay, well, this person would go and pick her up, and this person would take her home, and it kind of divided up the, you know, the whole process, so that it wasn't a lot, and it was a couple of people that maybe weren't in the midst of fixing the dinner. So that worked really well. So yes, getting help. And again, asking for help is one of the big things. So just saying to, because Sam family members and friends are often more than happy to help. They just don't know what would be helpful and how to do that. So, you know, if you can say, you know, it would be great if, you know, you could pick us up, or if you could, you know, take John for a drive while I get the Christmas tree set up or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, also we have to look at what is it that, you know, is going to bring us joy. There's, you know, always ways to, you know, change things in the season. So, you know, is it music? Is it watching maybe something on TV rather than going out to a live play? Yeah. And, you know, we're always looking at, you know, thinking about the triggers that people may have, because people are, you know, more or less able to adapt to the stress of their situation. So for family members who are, you know, needing help, if we're looking at things like, okay, so do they have any recognition that they're not coping? Are they regretting the fact that they're no longer able to go out and get the tree at Christmas? Are they, you know, what is stressful for them? And think about that too. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So, yes. So, and Seth is just saying, yeah, the big thing is to take care of yourself, for sure. Okay. And socializing to the level you want, right? Take a break from caregiving, get some respite, say no if it's too much, say yes if you really want to do it. I think that's pretty straightforward. Yeah. And get your rest. Because when we're, you know, struggling with all of these things, we, again, neglect our health. We neglect our sleep. We neglect our eating, and all of those things. So again, try very hard to look after yourself. And yeah, thanks for participating, Phil. That was great. And yeah, and that's a very good message, right? Look after yourself. Okay. Yeah. So we want to get our rest. And yes, and Gail's just saying that her husband doesn't enjoy Christmas anymore. He doesn't want to put up a tree, but Gail's still decorating with what she enjoys seeing. So again, maybe doing it on a smaller scale, not putting all the effort into something that is just going to be more stressful than it's worth. So great idea there. You know, putting it all together. Okay, because what we want to do is we want to include the people we care about in the holiday preparations, but only to the best of their ability. And, you know, if you know this is going to be more stressful for them, then maybe you find some quiet things that they can do separately. Or it may be that if they've always been involved in, you know, fixing the dinner, then maybe you get them peeling the potatoes and you ask them, you know, or you talk to them about their favorite dressing recipe and those kinds of things. But you keep it simple. You focus on what strengths they have left, and you adjust things as needed so that you're not putting too much pressure on yourself or on other people to cope with the situation. So we oftentimes try to make it just like it was, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is to let ourselves let go of some of that. And really looking at what part of the season makes you happy. And while we're talking about Christmas, this can be any time of year and any time that you're feeling, you know, stressed. It can be a birthday, it can be Easter, it can be any holiday season. But just think about it, right? But, you know, this was a slide that I found talking about what is it that makes people happy. And there's a lot of things which, you know, cause distress, like the commercialism and materialism, financial pressures, the crowds and the shopping. But the things that are really important are time with family and friends, an opportunity to, practice whatever religious or spiritual services that you want, or a time for reflection if that's the case, and having a happy and joyful social life. So looking, as Janet says, at what is it that brings you joy in life, because that's what you really want to focus on at the holiday season. And I apologize that it says American Holiday Lights, but, I thought it was a well worthwhile slide. So that's why I put it in, because I'm sure it applies equally to Canadian holiday lights. So, but again, to me, the important part of the holiday is the time with family and friends. And so, focus on that, and, avoid some of the other pieces that you don't maybe need to get into. And if there's other things that people find that bring them joy, then, or, rituals or holiday traditions that they really appreciate, I'd love to hear. I just put in a few examples of, options that you could do. So instead of doing a big Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve, maybe what you do is you order in. I have friends, and they order in Chinese food on Christmas Eve. And then they have their Christmas Day activities. But, it made such a difference because of all the, the visiting and all the people and everything that was going on. They just decided, well, why not? So that's what they do. Treat yourself and bring somebody in to clean your home so that you're not, worried about, okay, well, I don't have time to do all of this. So, have a company come in. And I really liked this particular company's slide. I have no idea who they are, but leave it to us, which is really the message that is kind of the take home here, right? Delegate, give it to somebody else to do. Now, I really enjoy shopping, and I like the chaos. So to me, going shopping with a good friend, rather than going out by myself, would be a fun thing to do, right? I would really enjoy that. But, you may not want to do that at all. And so lots of people just shop online. So, again, two choices. You could, rather than going shopping by yourself, go with a friend, go with a family member, or just do it online. Okay. So if people have other ideas, other choices that they've made in terms of how they cope, that would be great if they can mention them, because I've just got a few here, but I'm sure you have some brilliant ideas as well, because you're dealing with this all the time. I'm not so sure that it would be less chaotic, but, maybe get the grandchildren to help decorate the tree as opposed to doing it on your own. Or have a tree decorating party with the family. Those are kind of the kind of things that, rather than you stressing over, oh, well, I don't have the time to do it, you make it a bit of an event and you set it up that way. Yeah. Gail's saying that, a lot of what she's doing now is shopping online, because a lot of family live out of town, and the cost of sending parcels these days is so high. It makes it easier, because then they're just delivered right to their door. The other thing is, make some choices. Pick the 3 most important activities that you are really important, that really mean Christmas for you, or whatever season it is. What are the 3 things that make that season for you? And delegate the rest of them to other people. How many of you have made changes in how you celebrate the season? That's what I'd like to know. And if so, what kinds of changes have you made? Because that's, you know, that's something that I think we can all figure out and learn from. So if you've got some ideas, or if you can think about changes you might like to make, like what could you do differently this year than in previous years, that would be good. So again, feel free to add to my ideas here because I'm sure you've got lots of great ones too.
Maureen, it's Janet. One of the things that I was able to do for my mom was, you know, her mobility had decreased and all of her siblings, their mobility was decreasing too. But we arranged phone calls, and nowadays Skype, for those people who have computers and have that capacity, that's another huge opportunity. You know, if the in-person visits have become not as easy.
That's right. That's right. I know when my daughters were in Thailand, they ended up Skyping with my mother, who thought this was quite the, you know, amazing that she could be seeing them when they were halfway around the world. And so, yes, it was a brilliant idea. It wasn't at Christmas, but again, that's an excellent suggestion for, you know, another way of including people and, you know, helping siblings, you know, be together, because with that generation, those contacts, you know, become fewer and far between. And it's amazing how many people really thrive when they have that opportunity. Yeah, okay. And another suggestion here from Gail is the younger members of the family host the Christmas meal. And so you as the caregiver don't have to maintain all of that and do that, and you just can do a small portion. Anyway, thanks for coming, Gail. I appreciate all your input. I've just got a couple more slides, so hopefully we won't be too much longer here. We've got a few minutes, though, for discussion and things. So I think the key here, really, which we're all talking about, is the importance of being able to spend time with family and friends and doing the things that, you know, are important. Appreciating the opportunity to be with the people who care about you. Yeah. So that's something else. So whatever it is, and participating to whatever level is possible. Maybe you're not able to go out and get the tree, but they bring the tree home to show you. Or your grandson goes and gets the tree for you. Or you get an artificial tree, maybe. Whatever it is, right? You know, you can always simplify things in lots of different ways. One of the things we want to do is always keep an eye on what our stress level is and where are we on that stress scale, because we don't want to hit maximum. We want to keep it in the low to moderate range if we can, maybe an occasional, you know, traverse into high. So really think about things in terms of what is it that you need to do, what is it you feel you ought to do but don't really want to, and see how you can adapt things. So, you know, if you can think of, you know, one way to reduce your stress this season, what would it be? And if you want to, you know, just put that into the chat line, that would be great. So just so that we can all sort of learn from what idea you have that's going to decrease your stress this season.
I'm going to put an action plan together and make sure that the things that I want to do get done, and I'm in a pace that is acceptable to me.
Yeah, that sounds great, because I think writing it down, first of all, you to identify what it is and what your goals are. You know, another workshop that I do, I talk about setting goals for yourself as a caregiver. And writing things down is the huge start to that, because then you think, okay, well, this is what's happening. This is what I can do or I want to do differently. So that's a really good point. Yeah. And, you know, Bonnie's saying realizing that you have choices and to be flexible. So, yeah, we feel oftentimes so committed to doing things the same way we've always done them. And, you know, for us to make those choices to do it differently is a great thing, for sure.
Yeah, I think you have to be open to change. And I think, in a situation like this, you have to be open to, you have to be flexible. Because you put on, otherwise you put so much undue stress on yourself. And for what? Really, at the end of the day, you know, you have to decide what's really important and not.
Where did I go with that, you know? So, yeah. So, for sure, you know, I think that's all about that adapt, adjust, accept, right?
Yeah, that's right. You have to learn to accept things that you can't change, right? And you have to move forward with a different way, you know?
Exactly, right. So if you can kind of, you know, sort of activate those concepts, then it does make it much easier, because then you think, oh, okay, do I have to do this? Now, what are those questions I'm supposed to ask myself here? Let me see. Would the holidays be the same? Could I choose to do something differently? That's what I always like, is can I choose? Because so often we can make a choice, but sometimes we just get, you know, drawn along because we haven't thought about it in advance or come up with that plan, right? And why am I doing it, right? Is it out of habit or tradition, free choice or obligation?
But you know what, if we make that, if we make the choice to make a change, we might find out that we might like this tradition better than what we've been so accustomed to, right?
Yeah, I know for me, when we gave up on the gift giving for everybody, and I mean, it's not that I have a huge family, but it was sort of like, okay, like I wasn't really the advocate of that, because I enjoy buying presents for people. That's how I show I care, right? So
yeah, of course, yeah.
That was like, oh my God. But then once we did it, it was like, wow, I spent way less money, and I actually enjoyed it because I thought about what they would like, and and now that's become the new tradition, and you know, it's great because, you know, I have adult children, and you know, it saves everybody a lot, because I remember when, you know, well, a long time ago, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to buy for all these, you know, brothers-in-laws and sister-in-laws, and it was just getting a bit nuts. And so, you know, it took a long time for us to that point. But, yeah, it makes a huge difference. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, I know of a few another lady that I volunteer with in my community, church community, and that's what she does with her family. Like, her family's not very large, but she says they decided to do that, the Secret Santa thing.
Yeah.
And she said, you know, it's so much easier.
Yes.
And everybody has a lot of fun with it, you know?
Exactly. And, you know, you set a price limit, and, it works out very well. So that's something that, you know, that's again been something for me that's made a huge difference, because I can't tell you how many evenings I am up there, you know, running around at the last minute, exhausted, trying to get everything done. So,
well, that's the same thing with me, because my family live in Kingston and Ottawa area here in Ontario, and I would be, when I was working, I would be sending parcels like, you know, on the 21st or the 22nd of December, because I was, you know, running around like crazy to get these presents and stuff and wrap it up and make sure that it got out, you know. But I said, you know what, that's just craziness, you know. So, I mean, it takes away some of the joy for the younger ones, but you know what, I have to be realistic about things because of my own health situation and my other family members. I have to do what I think is right for me, you know. So I've had to take a step back and look at the situation and say, you know what, this is more realistic for me, and this is what I have to do.
Yeah, Yeah, and that makes so much sense when you sort of think, now why didn't I do this a long time ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So
Time is
now,
a great thing, and that, sooner or later we learn from our experiences, right? So, yeah.
yeah, well, it's better later than never, right?
Well,
That's the way I look at it.
but, I go back to that slide that talks about, it's like trying to create a change in, something that you've done the same way for a long time is, like, it's tough. It's not an easy thing for us to do. We really do have to work hard to, to shift things. So,
well, and I try to keep a lot because all my parents are not here anymore, and so for my own daughter and my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, I've tried to keep some of the traditions that I grew up with, alive, but it's not so easy to do that because they're so spread apart, right? And it's not every year that I get together with them for Christmas or whatever, right? Because I have to split my time with my husband's family as well. So it makes it
well,
it's
and again,
hard
we're talking about, caregiving, but the reality is that no matter what your circumstance, there's always those pressures between you and other people, like blended families long distance, trying to get together to see people that you want to see. All of those are difficult. So, yeah. So,
yeah, well, because I'm caregiver to my grandson, and he lives in Toronto, but his family live in Ottawa, so he doesn't always go there. So I have to split my time between him and make sure that everything's taken care of for him and my husband and his family, and so I get stuck in this, vicious circle, right? And it gets to be like, whoa, when is it time for me? In the year, when do I get time to be able to do some of the things that I need to do for myself?
Right. Well, it's good to realize because so often that's the biggest challenge is actually getting to the point where you think, okay, what am I doing for myself here, and how can I do that?
Well, years ago, my mother was ill, and I was a caregiver for her. She had cancer, and after she passed away, it was like 6 months later, I was completely burnt out because I was taking care of her and my family and working and everything else. So now that I'm older, but I'm still doing a lot of the same functions, I realized that you have to take care of ourselves, right?
That's right.
Because if we don't take care of us, then we're no good to anybody else. Yeah.
Okay, so my final slide here is just a quote from William James. The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another, which I think really summarizes what you've just been talking about and what we've been discussing a lot tonight. Because what happens is it's all about choices that we make in terms of how we respond to things that are happening in our lives. So we can choose to respond in a different way to events. So we don't have to do it the same way. We can choose a different way. So that's probably my biggest take-home message there is, okay, what different choice could you make to make it better for you? Because we need to look after ourselves and, protect those Christmas balls that are so fragile and doing so much work out there.
Yeah, very true, very true, very true.
Okay.